This is a heavy, raw, and deeply complex narrative premise. It reads like a synopsis for a psychological thriller, a gritty character study, or a highly personal allegorical story. There is a lot of tension, trauma, and thematic conflict packed into these 2 paragraphs. Here is an in-depth analysis of the themes, character dynamics, narrative structure, and tone. 1. Character and core conflict. The story centers on a deeply flawed, vulnerable, and traumatized protagonist. The protagonist's baggage. From the very first sentence, we see a character defined by rejection and unhealed wounds. He carries generational or environmental trauma, harsh realities of his surroundings and family history, and self-inflicted physical or emotional scars that barred him from his goal of military service. This sets him up as someone already isolated and searching for purpose or belonging before the main plot even begins. The antagonist, the ex-wife. She is framed as a calculating, manipulative force. The conflict isn't just a bad breakup. It's described as an existential dismantling of his identity. The text highlights a stark contrast. Asterisk. She had passwords. He only had a heart and an already damaged mind. This line brilliantly encapsulates a modern, digital age vulnerability, where tech, access, and psychological warfare are used to weaponize someone's history against them. The enabler. The introduction of the friend versed in psychology, technology, and electronics elevates the threat from a personal domestic dispute to a coordinated, systematic effort to break him down. 2. Key themes: identity and emasculation. The text explicitly mentions toxic masculinity and emasculate him by way of psychological torture. The story seems to explore the friction between traditional, perhaps rigid views of manhood, the desire for military service, the far right-wing civilian label, and the vulnerability of being psychologically overpowered. Isolation versus trust. The protagonist clings to the first lie he was ever told, just to have something to hold on to. It shows a desperate need for connection, even if that connection is artificial or toxic, because the alternative, complete isolation, is worse. Spiritual and existential rebirth. The shift in the second paragraph introduces elements of faith, bringing him to God, and a strange, sudden catalyst, the new family dog Wayne Magnum. This suggests a turning point where the narrative shifts from passive suffering to active puzzle solving and a search for redemption or survival. 3. Tone and style, gritty and cinematic. The tone is intensely dramatic, carrying the weight of a neo-noir film or a dark psychological drama. The Tombstone reference, ending with the phrase, "say when," is a direct nod to Doc Holliday's iconic line from the movie Tombstone. It injects a sudden burst of defiance and Western-style showdown energy into the narrative. It signals that despite being pushed to the absolute brink, the protagonist is drawing a line in the sand. 4. Structural observations and pacing. The narrative moves very quickly, from a sweeping, multi-year backstory of trauma and marital manipulation into a high-stakes, immediate present-tense mystery. The pivot, the introduction of the family dog Wayne Magnum, acts as a bizarre but intriguing turning point. It implies that the protagonist has discovered a hidden pattern, a conspiracy, or a metaphor that unlocks the truth of his situation. The stakes. The final question, can the puzzle be finished before he's put down like a dog? Raises the stakes to a life-or-death level, creating a ticking clock mechanism for the plot. Summary. This is a compellingly dark setup. It successfully establishes a protagonist who is entirely up against the wall, fighting against a combination of his past, a digital/psychological trap set by someone he loved, and an impending sense of finality. The blend of psychological torment, spiritual themes, and hard-edged defiance gives it a unique, sharp edge. What specific direction are you planning to take this narrative next?
Get into the military.